you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. Today is one of our special office hours Sales Professors Unplugged shows. I'm going to be talking with Adam Rapp at Ohio University. We're also going to be talking, besides what are they teaching at Ohio University and what do some of the companies that are looking to recruit, what do they want to know? We're also going to be talking about something unique on this show. We're going to be talking about academic research and how that academic can and should be used in the real world. Adam, I know you've done a lot of research into that, so I'm excited to talk about that. I want to remind people, if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate that. If you're watching this on Apple or listening on Apple Podcasts, please go up, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that as well. Every past show we've ever done can be found on salesgamechangerspodcast.com, salesgamechangerspodcast.com. Search Adam Rapp. You can find the complete transcript, Adam, not just of your show and not just of a couple of shows that we've done with the great Lance Tyson, who you work very closely with. We've interviewed him a couple of times. He was actually a finalist for one of our Sales Innovation Awards back in the late 2010s. You'll find close to 800 shows that we've done with sales leaders at companies like Salesforce, Hilton, Microsoft, et cetera. And if you search office hours, you'll find all the shows that we're doing with professors. So Adam Rapp, I'm excited to talk to you. You know, you're a hard hitter. You know, you're making things happen. I know we learned that with Lance when we first got introduced to Tyson's, and I've learned a little bit about your journey to Ohio University. So give us a little bit of a background. What got you to Ohio University? And then let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing in industry. And then we'll go through, what are you teaching at Ohio University?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me today. Really looking forward to the conversation. Any chance I can share about our program or just about sales in general is a real meaningful opportunity for me. So thank you. My journey is, I think it's like a lot of faculty members in the sales world. You know, I graduated college, started a career, was in sales, and my journey was that the company I worked for was bought out and the external sales force was moved internal. And so I had to make some decisions and so decided to pursue a PhD. I was in marketing and I was in branding at the time, landed at the University of Connecticut. And at that time, there was a guy there named Michael Ahern, who is a big heavy hitter, right, in the sales research world, and had a chance to meet with him my first year, and he asked me about researching sales and teaching sales, and I didn't know that was even a thing because when I came through college in the 90s, it just wasn't. And then he was early 2002. He was starting a program, University of Connecticut. I jumped on board with him, and I was fortunate because he made a move to University of Houston. I followed him down there, spent a year and a half at Houston. Then I took my first job at Kent State, which didn't have a sales focus. So I moved to Clemson, where I helped start their first program, to then University of Alabama, that has a very strong program, and now 11 years at Ohio University. So my journey has been sales programs pretty much from the first semester of my PhD program the entire way through. So it's been a fantastic space. I've been fortunate seeing how to run things at Clemson, how to run things at Alabama, what was going on at Houston. So I was lucky when I got here. I was able to kind of cherry pick the best of the best things I've seen over the past 20 years, and then revise and revamp a program here at Ohio University that was founded in 97. So the Ralph and Lucy Shea Sales Center has been here for quite some time now, but then I was able to kind of make some minor tweaks and changes that really catapulted us to the next level, I would say.
So you've worked at some of the heavy hitters. You mentioned
Yeah.
Clemson, Alabama. So I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned you've made some tweaks along the way.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your program. Do you offer a major, minor, certificate, a class, whatever it might be? And I'm just kind of curious on some of the tweaks that you've made along the way based on places where you've been before.
Sure, absolutely. So we are a certificate-based program. I know some schools have majors, some have minors. We're a certificate. We like that space because our attitude here is that everybody has to sell something. So we tell students, be the best finance major, the best engineer, be the best major you can be on what you're passionate about, and then add on the selling skills. And so we just want to add on those soft skills to give students more opportunities, open more doors for them. By doing that, we're open to the entire university. So 70% of our students are College of Business, but we have 30% outside of the College of Business, from engineering, from the script school, communication, nursing, education majors. I mean, we have the gambit of students, which puts a lot of nice diversity into the program and kind of different ways of thinking. The program currently it's a little over 600 students. By the end of this year, we'll hit 700, but then we graduate about 200 to 250 a year. So we're always kind of turning folks over. And then we have about 48 corporate partners right now. So we have a really nice balance between students and partners, but we're a force on campus. We are the largest certificate program, and we want to try to provide as many opportunities as we can to the students, which we think, can really add value in their lives and help them along their journey.
Just kind of curious,
Yeah.
for a finance major or an engineering major, do they come to the program because they've heard about it and they see this angle that's going to make them more marketable when they graduate? Or is it the other way around? Do you do a lot of recruiting? Do you have like tables in the quad? Just kind of tell us about that.
We do both. And that's one of the big changes when I came here. I wanted to be very aggressive recruiting because my attitude is I wanted 100% brand awareness. Like, even if people don't come out to the program, I want everybody to know about the program. So when they graduate, it was a choice that they made. It wasn't something like they didn't know about us, they chose not to. And so we got very aggressive. And 11 years ago, kind of the rise of digital marketing, we went where the students were. We went on the YouTube platforms. We went on Snapchat videos. We went TikTok, everywhere where students were and old guys like me aren't. Right? We found the right team of people to help us get there and get in front of students on their phones and devices, which really helped us out. And so this most recent freshman class, at least in the College of Business, we have 100% brand awareness. And so the attitude is like, hey, now you know about us, and here's how we can help you. And so we got in front of the students, and then part of it was giving the strong value proposition. And so, like many programs, we're a three-legged stool. So one is our classes and our coursework, so curriculum, but that's open to anybody. So you don't have to be just a sales major. Anybody can take our classes. The other two things which are specific to the members are, one is access to our corporate partners. So, for example, tonight we're running a career fair. We'll have probably 35 to 40 of the partners show up, and it's only available to our students. So we'll have 40 companies hiring for sales folks. We'll put somewhere between 400 and 600 students through the room interested in sales. So it's a really nice match. So it's not like some career fairs where you're kind of hoping to find a salesperson, or you're kind of hoping to find the right company. We really get those people in the room and matched up together, which works out pretty well for us.
Well, so you mentioned like 48 sponsors and 40
Yeah.
companies are going to be. Again, we're doing today's interview in the early fall of 2025. So obviously, you've done a great job attracting corporate sponsors and companies that are looking to hire young selling professionals. Tell us about that. What have you done to attract this great group of companies looking for talent?
So I think I would argue it's the quality of our students. So Ohio University, we are Southeast Ohio. We are not the Buckeyes. We're not Scarlet and Gray. We're the Bobcats, but our students come through and they have a lot of grit. They have a lot of tenacity, a lot of first generation. And the partners really enjoy our students because the students are willing to grind. They're willing to put the time in, and they want to be in this position because they see the opportunity that's put in front of them. The other piece is that we vet our students pretty thoroughly before they join the program. So you have to interview to get in. We only have about a 25% acceptance rate. So we'll have 400 to 500 people come out for the program. We'll take 100 to 150. So a lot of that first round screener and vetting, we do that on our own. So we do, a 30-minute interview with a corporate partner and a student. Once you're selected into the program, you still have 8 weeks of professional development you have to go through. And so companies really enjoy that because when they get in the room with students, they already know that they're a certain level or a certain quality or value. Beyond that, right, they know that they have an interest in sales. It's not something new to them where they have to educate them what sales is, because we've already done that on our end. And so companies have had a lot of success with our students, kind of moving up the organization fast, moving into leadership roles, and really honestly crushing quota at a lot of organizations. So when that happens and you find, good sales talent and a nice pipeline, companies keep coming back. And we only have to replace probably 4 or 5 companies a year, right? So we have a lot of renewed business.
Yeah. So, what do your students want to learn? Interesting. You mentioned first generation
Yeah,
college students. You used the word grit, grind, etc. So, when the students get into the program, what are some of the things that they want to learn that they really gravitate towards that you teach?
sure. I think there's two things, right? The one thing, and this is the third leg of the stool I would mention, it's the professional development. Most of them, and this is where I identify strongly. I came from a family where first generation, I didn't have anybody to lean on for interviewing skills or resume help or elevator pitches or any of those things. And so a big part of our program is built on helping students improve themselves internally so they can have more opportunities. And students are hungry for that. Like there's a lot of career services on campus, there's a lot of places for them to go, but this is geared towards them. There's a lot of one-on-one type work to really work them through some of these steps and repetition and muscle memory, like an athlete. So that they really like that. The other piece is just the foundations of selling, because when we talk about sales and with all the negative stereotypes that exist out there, and we know what those are, we take the servant-based selling mindset of how are we going to help? How do we identify problems or challenges? And if we can't, then we shake someone's hand, thank them for their time, and move on, right? And so students, that look is refreshing to a lot of them because they think of some of the negative stereotypes. But when I tell them, hey, we're here to help and to serve our customers, and if we can, then we'll go find some people that we can, then they really lighten up to that. Then they're all in. They want to say, okay, I do want to help people. I do want to have impact. Help me learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, again, we're talking today with Adam Rapp at the Ohio University, and I represent the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. And we believe that sales is a profession. The people who we work with are on board. And I love the way you just use terms like service, servant leadership. The people that you and I know who long term succeed in sales really do understand that. And it's not about getting someone to do something that they don't want to do. That doesn't happen anymore in 2025. And when we're today recording the show, it's the customer's in charge now. The customer has information that they hadn't had in the past. They have options. So, the sales professionals need to understand that, et cetera. What would you tell a business that they might not know? So if a company, you approached them or they approached you, what might be something that you would share with them that they might not know about your program?
um, so I think the big thing is, and this is one of my value propositions. Whenever I talk to a potential partner or we're sitting down with a company or anybody, I give them the number 500 and I say 500 hours. That's the amount of sales training, experience, and knowledge that our students have when they graduate. And I say the reason that that number matters is because, as Forbes magazine showed, as Harvard Business Review has shown, that students graduating from a sales program hit quota, I believe it's 30% faster, stay at a company 40% longer, so longer tenure. And I'm like, the big thing is A, we vet the students, but B, when students make it through, they know that this is what they want to do. They know they're passionate about this space. And so from that standpoint, I want companies to realize, hey, not all career fairs are created equal. Not all programs are created equal. Like I strongly encourage, and if it's not Ohio University and the Shea Sales Center, go find a sales program that fits what you're looking for and kind of the values and maybe location, whatever it might be, because I really believe that there's a lot of opportunity here for companies. And so that's one thing that I'll tell them is I'll be like, look, it's not just a class, it's not just a workshop. It's, I don't want to say way of life, but students are spending multiple semesters working through this process. And honestly, some select out because they realize along the journey that, hey, this isn't for me. And that's okay. And actually, I would argue that's a good thing because it's better to find out here your junior year when you're 21 years old than your first job, you're living somewhere and you're 9 months in and you realize, wow, this isn't for me. So that's one of the things I always try to tell companies, hey, realize that these folks coming through are getting a lot of experience. A lot of the programs, like our program, right, it has a mandatory selling internship. We're doing some live selling of real products. There's things that are happening. So I wouldn't say it's B2B-esque in the sense that they're actually selling B2B products, but they are getting that experience interacting with clients and customers. And so they are getting a flavor for that.
No, that's a really good point. And unlike accounting or operations or finance, the way you succeed in sales is by succeeding in sales, right? And I like the way, again, I'm going back to some things you said before. the sales professionals who are successful long term, a lot of times there's no script, right? And you have to create things and you have to understand things. And, customers have changed. And especially over the last, 5 years, a lot of how companies are, that we're targeting prospects want to interact with sales has changed. And, you might be successful 1 out of 20 times and you're successful. Right. So there's a lot that goes into that. So I love to hear some of the mindset and the mentality that you're talking to. One thing that you're also doing a lot of work with Adam Rapp at Ohio University is you're doing a lot of work to let's just say mesh the research that's happening in higher education and in practice. Kind of melding. You use the term melding those worlds together. Talk about some of that and what's your mission? What are you doing? What are you hoping to uncover? And what are you looking to bring out into the marketplace?
Well, so a couple different things. First of all, when I started, obviously in sales, I didn't know the research world existed. When I got into academia and I started working on research and publish or perish and did a bunch of that, I realized there was, and anybody will, any faculty, anybody out there will tell you there's a disconnect. And so that's always bothered me because the amount of times I would see something in the practitioner world or a new book come up, and I'm like, well, we wrote about that 20 years ago in the Journal of Marketing. Or there's things that we're starting to look into. And from a research standpoint, I would sit with a manager and they're like, hey, man, we've been doing this for 15 years. And so for me, I said, okay, I want to bring these worlds together. And I was fortunate knowing Lance Tyson, who you mentioned from Tyson Group. We've been talking, for several years. And he asked me about coming on the team and actually, because he said, what would you do in the perfect world? And I said, I would try to bring these worlds together. I would try to interpret some of the research articles and the research that's been out there, and then bring that into Tyson Group and the things you're doing, bring that into the research world. And it's been going wonderfully, right? Because I'm able to do that, and I'm finding that the platforms for disseminating this information, they exist now more than they ever have. So if we looked at your LinkedIn's and just like this podcast, right? I mean, on YouTube and Apple TV or whatever it might be, there's ways to get this information out there that it doesn't have to be a 22-page journal article. And same thing as I can talk to a manager today and I can get something up tomorrow that I just learned, right? And or take it into my classroom. And that's been the ultimate goal, right? And so that's what I've been doing. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback and having some really great conversations on both sides of the coin with faculty as well as with sales managers and leaders.
Just kind of curious, is there anything specific that comes to mind that you've seen a disconnect in academia that you've had to, that doesn't really play in the real world that you've been kind of bridging those two together with?
Um, yeah, I think well, there's a few. I think sometimes we go down the rabbit hole in higher education and academia, and we'll look at one idea and we'll just we'll go so far into the researching this one thing, and then we forget everything else that's happening in the rest of the sales world or sales environment, right? And so many times we'll be looking at one construct or one variable, and then we won't take into consideration the operating environment, the type of sales role, the experience the individual has. And so it's like, well, this is really great in this isolated environment that's a vacuum, but realistically, you put it into a sales setting, and it's like, hey, yes, that's a piece of it, but maybe not even the most important piece of it. And so having some of these conversations, people will say, yes, as an example, emotional intelligence, incredibly important. However, that is one construct or variable in a world of 100, right? And so I see a lot of those different things. So trying to put some perspective on that. And I've spent a lot of time recently with Tyson Group building out some assessments and which anchor academic research, but then also consider the holistic sales picture.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you want to teach, obviously, to use your example, emotional intelligence. And here's where it is. But, as you're talking about this, there's so many factors. Again, we're doing today's interview for people who are listening at the very end of September of 2025. I'm based in Northern Virginia, where the big marketplace is B2G, business to government. And there's so many factors that have been thrown into the mix with the public sector marketplace over the last, year, Doge and layoffs of employees and a lot of the challenges related to AI, et cetera. You can't just go in there as a sales professional and say, okay, I'm going to be emotionally intelligent today, and that's going to lead to a deal. It really is. If you think about it, it really is a sport, but not a sport in the sense that it's a game. It's the sense that you have to be, and the people who are successful long term in sales. They understand strategic selling. They understand, what's going on in the future. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts. One of the greatest bits of advice that we talk about a lot at the Institute for Effective Professional Selling is the fact that customers don't even need you if you're not going to bring them something that they haven't seen that's going to affect them a year or two down the road. Give us some of your thoughts onto how sales professionals, the ones you're teaching, and again, they're college students, so you can only teach them so much. But what are some of the things that you might be trying to get them to understand about how the customer operates, right? And where the customer's going and how the changing world has made them where the sales professional needs to add more value than they've ever done before.
Sure. I think there's multiple conversations here on the student side, absolutely, right? Trying to get students to understand that these customers, you're not walking in there and they haven't thought about this at all, right? And I always use the example, I'm like, how many of you do online, research or check reviews before you purchase? And every single hand goes up. And I'm like, it is no different in the sales world. Right? People are doing research, and maybe it's not an Amazon review, but they're absolutely looking at reviews or Googling stuff with AI now, putting it into Chat GPT, looking at strengths and weaknesses. And I mean, I've told students that I've been on sales calls and I've had people, I've watched them type in things I said into Chat GPT to see what it spits out. And I've had people like clarifying questions, challenge me on things. And I'm like, we live in a world of real-time information now. Now, whether it's all accurate or not, we can debate that if you want to, but these things are happening. And so trying to bring that across to students, but also the sales professionals, right? When talking to them, and for them, I level up the conversation. I say, hey, we talk about insight selling. You need to bring something to the table, something new, something insightful, especially something that's going to impact them in the future, either immediate ROI or something down the road, right? Talking about all these things in the past is okay, but today people are looking for results and they're looking for immediate impact and return. So we have to bring that to the table. And if we're gonna be the order taker, if we're gonna be the person to just list a bunch of features and then say, do you want to buy? That you're just not going to be long for the sales world if that's how you're approaching the job today.
Yeah, and that contradicts what you said before, is that the great sales professionals, the successful sales professionals, the one that will survive are truly servant leaders. And
Yeah.
they're truly putting the customer first and understanding, where's the customer need to go and how can I help them solve some problems. Wow, this was a fast conversation, Adam. We kind of zipped through a lot of things. And, it's funny, as I asked you that last question, and we could have talked for probably 3, 4 hours. And, you summarized everything really well in about 90 seconds. I'm going to ask you for your final action step in a
Sure.
second. But before I ask you for that, is there anything else that you want to share? Anything else that you wanted to bring onto the show that we haven't discussed that's really top of mind right now that would be valuable to our listeners?
Absolutely. The biggest thing right now that I've been dealing with is several years ago. I wrote a paper over 10 years ago, and it was on the Challenger framework, Challenger model, and giving some opinion and feedback on that. And over the past 10 years, I've gotten more phone calls about that and specifically sales methodology, about what methodology should we use, what process should we use, what's the best one. And so I've recently just wrote a paper for a journal, International Journal of Sales Transformation, about the idea of sales methodology and process. And so methodology, and so this is something that a lot of people say, hey, I want to go adopt spin selling, I want to adopt Challenger, I want to adopt whatever it might be. And the thing is that these are strategic frameworks, right? The idea of challenging the customer, the idea of bringing insight to the table, the idea of spin, right? These are approaches to selling. They're a philosophy. They're a mindset. I'm not going to say a go-to-marketing strategy, but they embrace the way that we feel like we should engage our customer. Sales process are the actual tactical steps that we're going to engage in. If we think of a general, if we use a wartime kind of metaphor, it's how are we going to go to battle? What are we going to do step by step? And so I talked to a lot of sales managers, and more now than ever, the past 6 months, of like, hey, look, a methodology that you embrace is wonderful, but you still have to understand there's tactical steps that you need to train your reps on. If this is the strategy, what are you going to do to support that strategy? Because I'm having a lot of phone calls today of saying, hey, we adopted X, but we're not getting the return. And I'm like, well, you didn't actually teach them how to do it. You taught them what it was. It's like if I go into a classroom of students and I teach them all theory, 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 Theory's wonderful, but in the sales world, man, and you know this, it's execution, it's practice, it's getting it done. So I could talk about theory for a minute, but then I better spend 10 minutes on like, here's how we implement that, here's how we do it. And so right now, the big top of mind is methodology versus process and what that means, and how managers and sales leaders really need to understand that they're different and how embrace the two ideas.
Yeah, but we could talk for another couple hours on that. I want to ask you an unfair question.
Sure.
Uh, do you teach do you teach any methodologies in at Ohio University, or do you? The reason I ask this is
Sure.
I met with a bunch of your peers recently,
Mhm.
and one of them said that a hiring from a recruit from one of the sponsored type companies asked this professor, "What methodology do you teach?" And I'm not going to say what he answered because I don't want to
Sure.
shade what you're going to say, but I'll give the answer. So the question to you is, do you teach any methodologies? Yes or no, and why not, or why?
So here's what we do. We do a six-step selling process that's agnostic. Okay. So we do general foundations. And the reason we do that is, hey, if you go into consumer packaged goods versus industrial versus tech, they may embrace different methodologies. It's the same thing with CRM. Like we teach the idea of it, the concept of it, how we use it, why it's important, but I don't teach Salesforce versus Davari versus whatever it might be. Same thing with sales. We do a six-step agnostic process. Hey, we want you to master questioning. We want you to master rapport building. But then once we get through that in our advanced selling course, we'll add on pieces and say, hey, one way to look at questioning is through spin. And we'll talk about that briefly. One way that we talk about opening a conversation is with insight selling. We'll introduce that. We don't embrace one specifically. We try to take more of a foundation of a pyramid, right? So that the big foundation, and then we'll slowly start to add on to it. But we don't deep dive on any single one.
Yeah, that would be a waste of time. I mean, especially as your young adults get hired, and we use insight versus sale versus spin, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you're pursuing that, and maybe we could have a follow-on conversation on that particular topic because that's really critical right now as the sales process is being uncovered, who you're selling for and who you're selling to. And especially as customers go through these dramatic changes that we're going through, you got to be on top of that and you got to be a professional.
Yeah.
Again, we changed our name at the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. We used to be known as the Institute for Excellence in Sales. And after having surveyed 300 sales leaders who said to us time and time again, we just need our people to be more effective. We had to shift to what do you got to be doing to be effective in 2025 and 2026 and 2027. Whew, Adam, we flew through this. Thank you so much. Adam Rapp with Ohio University and the Tysons Group. Uh, you've given us a lot of ideas, a lot of great things to think about. Give us one action step, something that people should do right now to take their sales career to the next level.
Oh, um, I think I think there's a couple different levels. Number one, I think for younger sales rep, less experienced sales rep, I think the best thing you can do right now is get repetition. And what I mean by that is I know it's tough making some of the calls if you're SDR, BDR, if you're dialing, if you're doing, virtual call, get the reps under your belt because the only way to improve is the repetition. And then honestly, identify those weaknesses. If you hate objections or you hate closing or you hate whatever it is, it's probably because you're weaker at it. Go find a mentor, find a coach, and raise that skill set. Right. I think that's a big thing. I think for my leaders, most sales leaders that I'm interacting with now, they were very good at selling, and all of a sudden they found themselves in sales, and they're like, "Well, here I am. How do I do this?" I think the best thing you can do in that role is have some conversations with some different experts in the field, whether it be faculty, whether it be people in your organization, join some external groups. I mean, there's a lot of, for example, like AMA is an example of more of a traditional marketing group, but there's groups out there where there's like-minded individuals that you can build a kind of a mentorship network with. You got to do that because I think reading the books is wonderful, but I think getting face to face with somebody and having a conversation with like-minded individuals can really boost your career.
No, that's great advice. And if you're a professional, what does a professional do? If you're a golf professional, you're on the tee box for 2 hours a day, you're on the putting green for
Yep.
3 hours, you're studying the mental side, etc. Same thing with great sales professionals is the things that I like the way you said that. If you don't like it, if you're not, if you don't like it, you're probably just not as good as you'd like to be.
Yeah.
And you have to be. And the reality too, Adam, is the sales professionals who are successful, they've probably made thousands of calls, right? They've gone through that to get to the next stage, and you have to. They're not going to promote you, on day one to being the VP of sales for the Eastern region because you're a nice guy.
Yep.
They've promoted you because you've proven that you are passionate about it, you're passionate about the customer, and you're passionate about helping your company achieve its goals. All right, once again, thanks, Adam Rapp from Ohio University and Tyson's Group. My name is Fred Diamond. This is the Sales Game Changers podcast, Office Hours, Sales Professors Unplugged.